I never liked Easter much. Maybe it was the pastels, or the fake niceties stretched over barely concealed tension at our family dinners. Maybe it was the smell of overcooked ham or the way my mom always insisted I bring something even though I worked 2 jobs and barely had time to sleep. But I knew what it really was. Easter was the annual reminder that in my family, success only wore a suit and came with a W-2. And I wore neither. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. I'm Kara Sullivan, 28, single, and the supposed disappointment of the family. At least that's the role I seem to play every time we all gather around that too-long oak table in my parents' formal dining room. I'm a digital illustrator. Freelance. I design sticker packs, digital planners, aesthetic kits, and online branding for small businesses. And I'm building something of my own on Etsy. Slowly. Painfully. But with everything I've got. To them it's cute. To me it's survival. I pulled up to my parents' house just after 5, my dented Hyundai rattling against the curb as I parked across from Jake's new Tesla. Of course it was parked diagonally in the driveway like a showroom model. I rolled my eyes and grabbed the lemon bars I'd stayed up baking the night before, a half-hearted attempt to play the good daughter. The front door opened before I knocked. "Oh good, you made it," she said, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear as she scanned me quickly, eyes lingering on my faded jeans and plain white tee. "Did you wear that on purpose?" "Nice to see you too, Mom." She stepped aside, already walking back toward the kitchen. "Well, come on in. Everyone else is here." And by everyone, she meant the usual suspects. My dad, stoic and mostly quiet unless politics came up. Aunt Marie and Uncle Steve with their 2 always shouting kids. Grandma Edna, perched like royalty on the far end of the couch. And of course Jake, the golden boy. My little brother Jake was 3 years younger but somehow always 5 steps ahead in our parents' eyes. He was the first to get a car, the first to have his college fully paid for, and now the first to land a real job right out of school. Software engineer at some startup in DC, complete with stock options, a standing desk, and a weird obsession with coding memes. "Kara," he called out, arms wide as he got up from his seat. "You look laid back." That was Jake speak for. "You look underdressed, unkempt, and unimpressive." I gave him a tight smile and handed the lemon bars to Mom, who made a non-committal noise before arranging them on a tray as if they were beneath her. "Big weekend?" I asked Jake, more to be polite than curious. "Oh, you know," he said, adjusting his collar. "Just got back from Miami. Our team hit a milestone. Pre-seed funding came through. Yo flew us out for a celebration. Beach house, jet skis, rooftop bar. You know how it is." I didn't. But I nodded like I did. Dinner was announced not long after. Ham, scalloped potatoes, asparagus drowning in butter. Same menu as every year. Same plastic bunny napkin rings. Same stale small talk. We took our usual seats around the table. I ended up next to Grandma Edna, which was a relief. She had always been the only one in the family who looked at me like I wasn't a failure. She called my art magic, and had once told me that my color palettes reminded her of spring in New England. She didn't say much unless she had something worth saying, which made her the opposite of almost everyone else at that table. About 10 minutes into dinner, the inevitable happened. "So Jake," Dad said, spearing a thick slice of ham. "How's the job going? You still at that fancy startup?" Jake grinned, always ready for his cue. "Better than ever. They just made me team lead on a new AI product. I'm running 4 developers now." Mom beamed. "That's my boy. A real career. Something stable." Pause. A glance in my direction. I reached for the water pitcher. Jake took a sip of wine, leaned back in his chair and looked right at me. "Not everyone can handle a real career in tech. Right, Kara?" The table laughed. Not just chuckles, laughter. Even Aunt Marie, who always claimed to be the neutral one, covered her mouth as she giggled. I froze, pitcher halfway to my glass. I set it down slowly. My ears burned and I could feel my chest tightening the way it always did when I was trying not to cry in public. But I didn't say anything. I just stared at my plate, cutting into a piece of potato like it had personally offended me. "What is it you do again?" Uncle Steve chimed in. "Still selling stickers or something?" "It's called digital branding," I said, forcing a smile. And yes, still doing that. Oh, that's nice, he said with a tone that made it sound like I'd told him I taught yoga to squirrels. I waited for someone, anyone, to step in. To say, that's enough, or she works hard too, or, actually, Kara just got featured in a design blog last month. But the silence said more than words ever could. Then I felt a hand gently rest on mine. Grandma Edna. She didn't speak, but her eyes met mine, soft but serious. Like she saw everything. Later, after dessert was served and the kids were screaming in the backyard, I retreated to the kitchen under the excuse of helping clean up. I didn't want to cry in front of them. They didn't get that privilege. I was halfway through loading the dishwasher when I heard the shuffle of slippers behind me. I always hated how your parents talk over you, Grandma said softly. And don't even get me started on your brother. I turned, blinking fast. It's fine. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be. She walked over, leaning heavily on her cane, and stood beside me at the counter. I see you, Kara. I see how hard you're working. You're building something that no one else at this table could build, not even Jake. His job could vanish the minute some exec decides to cut costs. But you're building a name, a brand. You own your time, your talent. That matters. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the granite. You're the only one who's ever said that. I mean it. She pulled something from her purse. A small envelope. This isn't charity. This is belief. In you. I opened it slowly. Like $20,000. I almost dropped it. Grandma, I can't. You can. And you will. Invest in yourself. Make them eat every word. I wanted to say something, thank you, or how much it meant, or how I'd pay her back with interest, but my throat felt too full. I just hugged her tighter than I'd hugged anyone in a long time. Now, she said, pulling back and straightening her cardigan, wipe your tears and get your head high. They don't get to define what success looks like. You do. As I watched her walk away, slower than she used to but with more power than anyone in that house, I realized something. I had been letting them write the narrative for too long. But not anymore. They thought I was just selling stickers? Fine. I'd build a digital empire. And next Easter they'd choke on every bite. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my thoughts spinning like the blades of the old fan above me. My fingers itched to draw, but I was too wound up, too full of something between rage and adrenaline to focus. Jake's words kept playing on a loop in my head. Not everyone can handle a real career in tech. He didn't even say it with malice. That was the worst part. It was just casual condescension, the kind that slides out of people who genuinely believe they're better than you. And the laughter that followed? That was what gutted me. My own parents laughed at me like I was a joke. But Grandma Edna's voice echoed louder. You're building something they could never understand. I got up before dawn. The house was quiet, the street outside still bathed in a sleepy blue haze. I made coffee, pulled out my iPad and opened Procreate. My hand hovered above the screen. Then I started sketching. I didn't stop for hours. By mid-morning I had 3 new sticker sets finished and uploaded to Etsy. I scheduled a few promo posts for Instagram and TikTok, then opened the envelope Grandma gave me again. $20,000. I stared at the check like it was something sacred. Not because of the number but because of what it represented. Someone believed in me, really believed. Not in the way people throw around half-hearted compliments, but in the kind of way that puts skin in the game. And that belief burned like fuel in my chest. I made a decision. I wasn't going to treat this like a gift. This was capital. And I was going to make damn sure I used every penny like it mattered. Within days, I filed the paperwork to turn my Etsy side hustle into an LLC, Kara Creative Company. I upgraded to a paid Shopify store. Bought new fonts, design tools, hired a branding coach I'd been following for months, and enrolled in a small business bootcamp that specialized in helping women creatives scale their online presence. I told no one in my family. Not even Grandma. I wanted to build in silence. Meanwhile, I kept my day job at the bookstore and my night job waitressing at the Brick House, a diner where the grease clung to your clothes long after your shift ended. I was tired, so tired, but I was also electrified. Every free second I had went into my business. Late nights designing, early mornings studying analytics, learning how to run ads, write better copy, improve my email marketing. For the first time I felt like I was in control of something. Like I wasn't just surviving, I was building. And then in late May it happened. One of my planner kits went viral. Some wellness influencer with 2 million followers posted a TikTok using my Vintage Earth Vibes digital planner pack, tagging me in the caption. By the time I woke up the next morning, my phone was a blur of notifications. Orders, comments, DMs. My store was flooded. That week I made more than I usually made in 3 months. It wasn't just the money, it was the validation. For so long I'd felt invisible, like I was whispering into a void. But now people saw me. They liked what I made. They were using it, praising it, paying for it. The viral hit turned into sustained momentum. My followers doubled, then tripled. More influencers started using my work. I got invited to guest on a design podcast. Shopify reached out about featuring me on their success stories blog. I launched a second store offering branding kits for new small businesses. Fonts, color palettes, logos, and that took off too. I was drowning in orders and emails, but it was the kind of drowning I'd begged the universe for. Jake still popped up on my feed, of course. More selfies in office hoodies. Brunch with coworkers at overpriced rooftop spots. A trip to Vegas for a company bonding retreat. But he didn't know. None of them knew. Until July. We were at Dad's birthday barbecue. Smaller than Easter, just close family. I showed up wearing a sage green linen dress. One I bought myself, not secondhand, and gold hoop earrings. I didn't say much at first, just sipped my lemonade and let them talk. Jake launched into some monologue about how he was developing a tool that used AI to help small businesses track user behavior. You wouldn't believe how dumb most people are when it comes to their own metrics, he said, laughing. I looked up slowly. Sounds like something you could explain with a sticker pack. The table went quiet for a second. Then Jake laughed. Oh, I forgot. You're still doing that online doodle thing, right? Actually, I said, folding my hands, I just passed $100,000 in sales. Mom blinked. Dad's fork paused in midair. Jake's smirk faltered. You what? Mom asked. In 3 months. 6 figures. And I'm launching a course for creatives next month. Jake scoffed. Wait, you're saying you made that drawing stickers? Designing digital tools. Branding kits. Planners. Fonts. Templates. And yes, some stickers. He leaned back in his chair, clearly annoyed. You're joking. Grandma Edna, who'd been quietly eating her corn on the cob, suddenly set it down and looked right at him. She's not joking. She's running a business. One she owns. One she built from scratch. I don't know what felt better. Watching Jake's jaw twitch or watching Grandma beam like she'd been waiting for this day. That night I caught him outside by the grill. You know, he said, nursing a beer, people get lucky all the time online. Doesn't mean it'll last. I'm not banking on luck, I replied. I'm building systems. I'm learning retention, scaling, customer funnels. I'm just getting started. He didn't say anything. Just sipped his drink, staring into the flame. A week later I found out Jake's company had laid off half its staff. He didn't say a word to the family. But I saw the signs. The vague Instagram stories. The absence of office photos. The sudden sale of his Tesla. Just trying to be more minimalist. By August I'd paid off my student loans. I left the diner job first, then the bookstore. I cried both times, happy tears but tears nonetheless. I moved into a sunlit apartment with hardwood floors and space for a real studio. I hired a part-time virtual assistant. My branding course sold out in 72 hours. My accountant told me I'd need to incorporate a second entity for my educational content. Grandma cried when I showed her my press feature on BuzzFeed. She said she'd printed it out and framed it for her hallway. Still, I said nothing at family gatherings. Let them think I was still selling doodles. Let them underestimate me. It made it so much sweeter when the truth slipped out. In September, Jake asked to catch up over coffee. I knew what was coming. His startup had collapsed. His rent was too high. The market was saturated. He needed something. Advice, money, a favor. Who knew? He arrived 15 minutes late, wearing a worn hoodie and looking tired. Not his usual smug self. So, he said after some forced small talk. I've been thinking about pivoting to creative tech. You know, building something on my own. Maybe we could collaborate. I sipped my latte slowly. You want to sell stickers with me? He blinked. I mean, not stickers, but like build tools for creatives. You've already got the audience. I bring the tech, you bring the design. I tilted my head. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not looking for a partner. I've got a team. And investors lined up for the next phase. He didn't hide the bitterness in his voice. Damn. Cold. I smiled. Not cold. Just clear. He left shortly after, muttering something about other options. I watched him go, and for the first time in my life I didn't feel like the lesser sibling. I didn't feel invisible. I felt powerful. They all thought I was playing with crayons. Turns out I was writing my own future in ink. It was around the time my second digital course launched, Creative Cash Flow for Freelance Designers, that I started getting emails from journalists. At first I thought they were spam. Or scams. But one by one I realized they were real. Local business columns. A podcast for women in tech. A lifestyle magazine that wanted to include me in a 30 under 30 entrepreneur feature. And then, something wild. BuzzFeed wanted to include me in a digital mini-documentary about online creators who turned side hustles into empires. I didn't even know how to respond at first. Part of me still didn't feel like I belonged in that world. I wasn't wearing power blazers or networking at pitch nights in San Francisco. I was running my business from a second-hand desk in my sunny but small apartment, often in leggings, drinking lukewarm coffee between client calls. But the numbers didn't lie. Neither did the hundreds of customer reviews flooding my inbox with things like, "Your planner helped me stay on track during chemo," or, "I finally started my own business after buying your branding kit." This was real. And it was bigger than I'd ever imagined. So I said yes. I agreed to the mini-doc, set up a small home shoot and let the camera crew in for a day. I was nervous, awkward in front of the lens, but something about talking about my journey, the uphill battles, the failures and tiny wins that led here made it feel worth it. The video dropped a week later. I was not ready for what happened next. It exploded. Within 24 hours I'd gained 60,000 new followers. My course waitlist ballooned. Sales spiked. I had DMs from schools asking me to speak, creators begging for mentorship, brands offering to sponsor my content. It felt like the sky cracked open and sunlight poured in after years of fighting through storms. And of course that's when my family decided to suddenly get interested. The text from my mom came first. "Just saw your video. Why didn't you tell us you were doing so well?" Followed an hour later by another. "Your father and I are so proud. You've really surprised us." Surprised them. Right. Because up until now they thought I was wasting time drawing on an iPad like a toddler in detention. Aunt Marie tagged me in a Facebook post. "Our talented Kara is famous now. We always knew she was special." I laughed out loud at that one. Always knew? Just 6 months ago she was asking me if I ever thought about going back to school for something practical. And then the worst message of, by the time Thanksgiving rolled around I was already 2 steps ahead of where I thought I'd be. Kara Creative Company had grown beyond what I imagined when I started sketching on my cracked iPad in that tiny apartment. I now had an actual team, a graphic design intern from SED who worshipped everything I did, a copywriter in Portland who seemed to read my brain, and a virtual assistant who made my chaotic schedule feel like a symphony. I had no intention of going to Thanksgiving dinner. Honestly, I thought about pretending I was sick or conveniently forgetting the date. But then Grandma called and said, "You will come. And you will wear something expensive that makes your mother uncomfortable. And then, sweetheart, you will smile." How could I say no? I wore a fitted emerald green dress I'd bought in New York last month when I flew out for a women's business summit. The trip had been comped. I was one of the featured panelists. The dress had cost nearly $800, more than my first rent check at the bookstore. I hadn't planned to spend that much, but the second I tried it on I saw exactly what Grandma meant. It looked like I belonged somewhere. Powerful. When I walked through the front door the conversation halted. It was a full second before Mom said anything, and when she did it was, "Oh, that's a bold color." Jake was already there, of course. His eyes slid over me and narrowed like he knew I was coming in with something to prove. I didn't have to say a word. The dress said it for me. Dinner smelled like cloves and tension. The turkey was overcooked again, and Mom had made her traditional sweet potato mash with the marshmallows burnt on top. Like always. Dad poured wine too early and was already on his 3rd glass before we'd even made it through grace. Jake avoided my eyes. He'd recently started posting vague inspirational quotes on LinkedIn and had launched a podcast called Code and Clarity, where he interviewed other unemployed tech bros and talked about mental resilience in a volatile industry. His last 3 episodes had a combined total of 79 listens. likely all from him and the guests' mothers. But he still held his chin high like it was a TED Talk in the making. I kept quiet through most of dinner. Grandma sat beside me again, this time with a knowing smile and her hand wrapped around mine like a co-conspirator. Her eyes sparkled every time someone made a passive comment in my direction. "So, Kara," Mom said finally during the lull between turkey and pie. "Still doing your graphic thing?" Jake smirked into his wine. I swallowed my bite of stuffing, dabbed the corner of my mouth with my napkin and smiled. "It's going well. We just crossed 200,000 in digital sales and secured our first licensing deal with a wellness company out in LA. I'm launching a subscription platform in January." Mom blinked. "Licensing?" "Yep. Passive income. Templates, art packs, visual branding suites." Jake leaned forward. "So what, you're like building a SaaS product now?" "No," I said, voice calm but steady. "I'm building an empire. A real career." The jab landed. I saw it in his eyes, the way he froze for a second too long. His fork scraped his plate like he needed something, anything, to focus on besides the humiliation tightening around his neck. Uncle Steve whistled low. "Wow. That's something. I guess art is finally paying the bills, huh?" "It's paying mine," I said. "And 3 employees. And 2 contractors. And my new studio lease." The silence was sharp. Delicious. Grandma let out a little laugh, the kind that sounded like it had been waiting in her chest for years. After dinner, Jake pulled me aside in the hallway near the coat rack. "You didn't have to showboat." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean like you did last Easter?" "That was different." "Right," I said. "Because then I was beneath you." He looked tired. His hair was longer but not in a trendy way, more in a forgot to schedule a haircut and maybe can't afford to kind of way. There were dark shadows under his eyes, and the designer hoodie he wore had pills on the sleeves. He was unraveling and I could see it even if no one else could. He said quietly, "it's not easy starting over." "Then maybe don't spit on people while you're still up," I replied. "Because you never know when you'll be the one asking for help." He went quiet. I turned to walk away but he stopped me. "Kara, wait." "What?" His eyes were heavy, desperate in a way I hadn't seen before. Could you loan me something? Just to get through the next month? I'm trying to get a freelance contract but it's slow. My lease is due. Credit cards are maxed." There was the moment I had imagined in so many daydreams. Jake the golden boy coming to me with his hands out. And me with the power to say yes or no. I paused. Let him sweat. "How much?" 5,000, he said too quickly. "Just a bridge. I'll pay it back." I laughed. "Not mean just hollow. Do you remember when you told Uncle Steve I was still selling stickers?" He looked down at the floor. "I don't owe you anything, Jake," I said. "You got all the head starts. All the praise. The investment. The education. The connections. You had everything handed to you and you threw it away." "I didn't throw it away. You wasted it on ego. And now you want my help." He looked at me, the bravado finally gone. "I'm not proud of it." "Good," I said. "Because I'm not sorry." I walked away. Later that night, Grandma pulled me aside near the window in the den, where she always liked to sit and watch the wind move through the trees. I heard. I didn't deny it. "Do you feel bad?" she asked gently. I thought about it. "Not really." "You shouldn't," she said. "Some lessons come with pain. It's not your job to carry his burden just because he finally fell." I sat beside her and leaned my head against her shoulder. "I used to want them all to love me," I whispered. "Now I just want them to see me." She patted my hand. "They do now. You show them who you are. Not through arguments. Not through begging. But through becoming." I didn't cry that time. I just sat there in silence watching the branches sway. A week later I got a message from Jake. Just a single sentence. "I get it now." I didn't respond. Instead, I posted a photo on my Instagram story. A flat lay of my new studio, complete with floor-to-ceiling windows, a blooming fiddle leaf fig and a neon sign on the wall that read, "Build quietly. Let success be the noise." And it was. The first time I got a brand partnership offer in the 5 figures, I didn't even believe it was real. I thought someone was playing a prank. I sat in my inbox staring at the subject line, "Let's collaborate, sponsored campaign inquiry, beauty and business collab." They wanted me to design a limited edition digital planner themed around a new skincare launch. They'd supply the aesthetic, I'd do the artwork, and they'd pay, upfront, $25,000. It was more than I made my entire first year freelancing. I remember just sitting there stunned. Not because I didn't think I was worth it, but because no one ever told me it was even possible. I signed the contract that night, and the next morning I woke up to a new PayPal notification. My hands shook as I opened it. It was real. My name, my money, my work. And of course, the moment it became undeniably real to the rest of the world was the day Forbes posted the article. How one former freelance artist built a 7-figure business, all from her kitchen table. There was my face, my story, my win. In the publication my parents used to read at breakfast like it was the holy grail of business validation. I wasn't ready for the fallout. My phone blew up. I got calls from old college friends, people who ghosted me years ago suddenly crawling out like weeds after rain. Strangers messaged me asking for advice. Men I hadn't spoken to since freshman orientation were suddenly so proud of how far you've come. And my family? They absolutely lost it. Mom called first. I had no idea you were doing this well. You should have told us, Kara. I held the phone away from my ear. I did, Mom. You just didn't listen. Don't be dramatic. You told me to marry a dentist. She sighed like I was being unreasonable. We just wanted stability for you. And I built it without your approval. Isn't that worth acknowledging? Pause. Then, as if nothing had happened, so your brother's birthday is coming up. We're planning something small at the house. There was. They couldn't let me have a win without reminding me that Jake still existed. So mattered more. I'm not coming, I said flatly. Kara. I'm busy. And I'm tired of showing up for a family that never showed up for me. I ended the call before she could guilt me into anything else. That weekend I hosted a brunch for my team at the new office space I'd leased downtown. The windows overlooked the park, and the entire back wall was painted with a mural I'd designed, a phoenix rising from shattered concrete. We toasted with mimosas and vegan croissants, laughing about client horror stories and shipping delays and the fact that I'd somehow gotten my Canva templates into Target's digital marketplace. It should have felt like peace. But then Jake showed up. I saw him from the window before he even buzzed. Same hoodie. Same sunken eyes. But something new this time. Something raw and restless, like desperation coated in shame. I stepped out before security could stop him. You can't be here, Jake. He looked up startled. I didn't know where else to go. You could have tried not being a jerk for most of your life, I said. Maybe then people would answer your calls. He swallowed. I got evicted. I didn't flinch. And you think that's my problem? No, he hesitated. Yes. I don't know. I'm not here to fight, Kara. That's a first. He shoved his hands in his pockets. I'm here because I messed up. You were right. About everything. Thought tech would always have my back. I thought I was better than you. I thought, if I failed someone would still catch me. But they didn't. His voice cracked. I didn't move. They stopped calling. The startup I was freelancing for ghosted me after 3 months of unpaid work. I can't get interviews. I sleep on Ben's couch when his girlfriend isn't there. I haven't eaten a full meal in 2 days. I looked at him. Really looked. This was the brother who used to gloat at Easter dinner. The one who said my hobby wouldn't get me anywhere. The one who laughed when I had to move back in with Mom after my first client ghosted me. The same brother who once told me I was too soft for business. Now he stood in front of me, cracked open. I'm not asking for money, he said quickly. I know you don't owe me anything. You're right. I don't. He nodded. The wind picked up behind him, ruffling his hair. I need a chance. A start. Even a small one. I studied him for a long moment. Then carefully, what would you do with it? He blinked. What? If I gave you a chance. If I helped. What would you do with it? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I'd rebuild. No, I said. You'd coast. Just like always. He looked stunned. You don't want to learn, Jake. You want to be rescued. And I'm done playing the lifeguard. He nodded slowly, eyes glassy now. I figured you'd say that. I almost softened. Almost. But I remembered the years I spent clawing up from nothing. The nights I cried alone in a dark room when no one believed in me. The humiliation. The hunger. The fight. And I remembered Easter. How he'd laughed at me like I was beneath him. Like I was a joke. So I said the one thing I knew would burn. You told me not everyone could handle a real career in tech, remember? Turns out you were right. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I stepped back, signaling the building staff behind me to close the door. He didn't fight it. Just stood there, shrinking under the shadow of everything he thought he deserved but never earned. That night I went home and cried. Not for Jake. For myself. For the girl I used to be, who would have given anything for his approval. Who used to shrink so small just to avoid being mocked. Who hid her sketches and her ambition and her heart because she thought being different meant being wrong. I cried for her. And then I lit a candle, opened my laptop and wrote the first chapter of my upcoming book. Build from the broken parts. Turn the pieces they laughed at into the foundation they envy. The next day I posted a tweet. They laughed at me for selling art online. Now I license to 6 global brands. The world changes. Keep building. It went viral. Jake didn't call again. But my little cousin Lily, the one who always sat quietly at family dinners, scribbling unicorns on her paper napkins, sent me a message. Hi Kara. I saw you in the magazine. I want to be like you. I like to draw. Is that okay? I smiled through the tears. And I wrote back. It's more than okay. It's powerful. Never let anyone tell you otherwise.